So welcome again to the Recruitment Reimagined podcast, executive podcast. I'm joined again today by my guest Toby Freeman from OptiB.
Hello.
A lot of you have been quite interested. We've had a lot of messages about this and wanting to learn about the kind of tech stack that Toby uses. And what I can tell you is that Toby's used different tech stacks and they have evolved as the tech themselves evolves. So we're going to talk about that today. And hopefully he has persuaded that we will do a live tech or a LinkedIn live tech demo where you can ask Toby questions and he'll show you how these things work. So Toby, please, I mean, just for the listeners who haven't seen the first 3 or 4 of these, you started off in recruitment about 3 years ago. Yeah. You started using AI about 12-18 months ago, 2 years ago, something like that.
December 2020. The start of 2023. Sorry.
So and now here we are today. Yeah. And you've evolved your tech. Yeah. Your tech stack. And again, for somebody who's not watched the first few episodes, I think we got to a point where I asked you. Well, first of all, you generated over £100,000 in your first year as a recruitment consultant, which is very respectable. Any business owner would take that. You've maintained that performance by switching to a 0 hours contract, and we worked out you were working about, out of a 40-hour week, you were probably doing 10 hours a week.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So please talk to us about your journey. For anyone, that's impressive. Okay. They're all saying you need to work 5 days a week and bill them $500,000. But by the way, that's different question.
Yeah. So I guess we all start back in 2022 when I was fresh out of uni. Didn't really obviously know what to necessarily go into. Funny enough, I studied film production at uni, but knew I wanted to have a bit of financial freedom, which is the main reason young people get into recruitment really. I joined a startup civil engineering recruitment company. Doing
perm recruitment, wasn't it?
Yeah,
placing professional, white collar
recruitment. September 2022 was when I started, as I said in previous episodes, what used to take me 9 hours 2 years ago now takes me 1 to 2 hours a day now, that slowly evolved from 2022 to where we are now. So I guess the first thing to start off with, the first milestone is when ChatGPT was released. My dad's big into AI.
Well, your dad's into tech. Your dad used to run a tech company.
He used to run a tech company, and he goes to he goes to a very prestigious conference every year, which is all about AI and robotics. Anyway, he comes back from this conference. Start of 2023, sort of end of 2022, and he's banging on about this thing called ChatGPT. At this point, it had been released for about 2 weeks, and he was like, "Tobes, you need to use this." And I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a go." And I guess I was a little bit slow to adopting it at the start. I gave it a go at the start of 2023, and wow, I instantly knew this is going to change business and work life as we know it, because the capabilities of it were something I'd never seen before.
So I'm not querying, because I know you've demonstrated it works. So please explain, what was it about it that made you feel this was going to change? What was it about the tool set? What did it do for you that blew your mind?
What did it offer me? The administrative tasks that were taking me hours to do before, I could, engineer a prompt that would get me, at the start, it might get me 80% of the way there. But, back then, 80% was still a lot of time, it just, that side of the technology, I'd never seen anything like it before. It really blew my mind, and then instantly I knew this was going to change work life. I started going into the office and I was using it. Obviously, the start of 2023 when not that many people were talking about GPT at that time. No,
I agree. Not in our space.
Not in the recruitment space. I started using it for things like job advertisements, checking over my emails, my grammar.
So when you say job advert, what we're saying here is you were posting jobs, because you do permanent recruitment, so you were posting jobs on the job boards. Yeah. Indeed, probably. And rather than spend 20 minutes, half an hour writing a job ad, you were able to create a chat GPT. Now, the cynics out there will be saying, but it'll be crap. It will be, were they crap job ads, or were you able to actually do some really clever, sexy things?
Well, I think it's the fact that the start of 2023, that technology was mind blowing. I think people forget that initial feeling of actually jumping on this technology and using it. And yeah, they might be slightly generic in certain ways, the first couple of ones, but you'd go through and you'd fine tune them generic words out yourself. Now we're at a point where it's the outputs, if prompted correctly and set up in a certain way, then the outputs aren't going to be as generic.
So we've talked about this offline. What artificial intelligence doesn't do is make an uneducated recruiter into a recruiter. So somebody who's an amateur couldn't pick up your toolkit and suddenly become an expert.
No.
But what it does do, as you use the language there, with the right prompts, and you're asking it what to do, and I know because you've inspired me to go and try and use it, and I've used it, and I'd agree with you. If you ask a bland question, it'll produce. If you say, produce me a training manual for a recruitment consultant, it'll give you an outline, and it'll probably give you the headlines. I bet if you asked it, it would produce the text. But training is not about knowledge share, it's about changing behaviour. And that requires a knowledge of psychology, and that requires a bit of understanding. It's the same with recruitment. Putting an ad on a job board isn't just about words, it's about inspiring the candidate to pick up the phone and ring you. So it's creating the right calls to action. So you're right, you need to prompt ChatGPT by asking it the right things. You can even, when you've told me this, you can even get it to use a tone of voice. You can share some tone of voice instructions, can't you? Yeah,
100%. And I think it's also important to note that, whilst ChatGPT does have a great hold of generic AI, that is not, just the sole use case of AI within the recruitment industry and within industries in a wider business. So
without going into the individual AI agents that you wrote, let's just give because a lot of these people watching this will be business owners, sales directors, recruitment MDs, whatever. What sort of tasks were you automating? We've talked already about advert placement. You've talked about front sheets. What other things were you using? You were using some sort of go on, you're going to say.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, advertisements, front sheets, we talked about AI note-taking. I think ones that we've not necessarily touched on are, CRM enrichment.
Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah, so using various different platforms out there to go ahead and find people's phone numbers and things like that. So you might have heard of Zoom Info, you might have heard of Apollo. Which are a big database of.
So can you connect an AI agent to Lusher or Zoom Info and just literally go and find the data, put it into CRM? Okay. Does that breach GDPR?
Well, it's a bit of a grey area, if I'm honest with you. I think.
Okay. You're smiling when you said that. So what do you mean by it's a grey area?
I think a lot of AI could be seen as breaching GDPR. But
interesting.
I think
because I actually not sure it does. Because if the information is freely available, and that's the key thing, if it's freely available on an internet server somewhere, then you're not. It's only information that's confidential. My home address is available on the internet because it's registered at Companies House and various other places, but. Where my grandchildren live isn't, and if somebody was to able to get that would be a breach of GDPR.
Yeah. And I think these established platforms like Zoom Info and like Apollo, they'll have their own GDPR.
But okay, so let's prove that. So CRM enrichment, note takers. We've talked about. So for the benefit of people who listen, so joining us for the first time. In episode 1 or 2, I can't remember which one it was now, you were talking to me about how you could use a note taker. Because you're slightly dyslexic, you could focus on the person you're speaking to. The information would then, at the end of that call, go straight into your CRM. So it means now all of your conversations use Otter AI. Are you using Otter AI right now?
I'm not actually using Otter AI right now. But I probably could have when I.
You could have done. Yeah. But anyway, that's a different kettle of fish. You can play back the video to yourself. And
exactly. Yeah, we can repurpose this content anyway. So You know, obviously, you know, AI is used in various different use cases. As I touched on there, CRM enrichment. I think the main thing is actually within recruitment, right? A big part of the recruitment process is about speed, isn't it? You know, how quickly can you actually be first to that candidate or be first to that client that potentially needs help? So, you know, utilizing a range of different tools in order to get to that person quickly makes sense, right?
So you were talking about ChatGPT, which would that be 3.0? We're now at 4.50, I think, aren't we? Or 4.5, not 4.50. Yeah, so that would be 3.0. We've then went to 4. You and I have talked about this. You didn't just use ChatGPT. You were using quite a few tech. So in the last session, you talked about using Gamma for designing PowerPoint or designing presentations. So you know that's another tool you use.
You can use Gamma. Gamma's a great tool for visualizing, you know, any content. I send proposals out through Gamma.
Really?
Which is really professional looking for £20 or $20 a month.
$20.
It's just
That's like 16.
It's just it's a no-brainer for tools like that. I guess from that initial, you know, going back to 2023 and my development within the space, obviously I started to use ChatGPT, you know, within my processes to make myself super efficient. Off the back of that, I think I was trusted more with some of the key clients that we had on board in the company at that time. Right. You know, because of how I would come across on emails, on calls and things, that's slightly different. But because how I was wording things on email, and ChatGPT helped me. I'm dyslexic, like, you know, it's a fantastic tool, and sometimes I've got to think outside the box to get what other people get naturally, if that makes sense. I feel like, you know, with a little bit of dyslexia.
That's fascinating. I mean, I have a friend, and she may listen to this, Jo Major. She champions diversity in recruitment, and Jo is, you know, she might be fascinated to know what you're doing and how you're using it and how this has helped and supported you. And that will help other neurodiverse people to further their careers and also give them a level playing field. I mean, I have members of my family who are neurodiverse, and I know that actually their brain does think in a different way, and my training helps me understand that people's brain works in a different way. But it works in a different way. It doesn't mean to say that they don't have the same intellectual capacity or brain capacity. Sometimes they have a superior brain capacity. You know, anyone who's ever seen Remond with Dustin Hoffman will remember how Tom Cruise used that to his own advantage playing cards and things. But anyway.
Yeah, I think I view it as a blessing because I think about general tasks a little bit differently. Yes. Which I think plays to a strength in my in the area that I'm in at the moment. You know, if there's a task at hand that needs to be done, the first thing I'm thinking, you know, how can I actually go ahead and potentially look to augment or automate this process so I don't have to do it again? You know, that's a weird way of thinking, but that's you know,
okay. So let me just. So you're now getting me to think this. So you've just gone to a place which is, I have a task to do here. Yeah. Rather than actually do the task and then get AI, you're now immediately saying, well, how do I use AI to do this? If
I've got a repetitive task, let's say, for example, this is an interesting topic. So building a USP into your company, you know, into your recruitment company. You know, one thing that a client might really, you know, like and utilize, and something that you could potentially, you know, sell into your business is, let's say, a market insights email that's sent, you know, every week with, you know, a evaluation of the salaries in certain markets at the end of every week.
I like the idea of this.
Or something,
a market insight survey.
Or something like that. Or something
so you could write an AI agent to produce...
automatically do that,
To automatically do that, to generate it and to send it out?
Yeah. Or let's say if you're tracking the data somewhere, so if you're tracking the data in your notes, if you're tracking the data...
I've got a client who might be interested in this, so carry on. I shall direct you to this podcast.
Yeah, there's definitely ways of doing things like that, and there are conversations that I've had in the past.
How would they do that? How would they get access to that data? Is that data out there in the ether on the internet, or is this data that you would be giving them access to that's within a client server?
So, you know, what I'd probably do is something like this. I'm going to try and explain it as uncomplicated as possible. Let's say you've got your AI note taker who's on, you know, a consultant's call, and and then you can then go ahead and send that information to your CRM. Somewhere in that funnel where the data has been sent from your transcript to your CRM, we could add a Google Sheets, for example, where we would, and a ChatGPT module. So we'll get ChatGPT to look over the transcript, we'll get ChatGPT to pull out the salary information and then pop that into a Google Sheet. And then every week we'll get an AI agent to look at that Google Sheet, do the mathematics around it, or present the data in a certain way that can then be sent to a client, if that makes sense.
So does that, I mean, do you need to have a reasonable number of candidates you're interviewing in order to provide that information?
I mean, that was just an example.
I like what you're saying.
Yeah. I mean,
so could you create, listen to this very carefully, listeners, could you create a market information newsletter to go out from us once a month, which talks about AI and what we're doing?
I think you definitely could create some sort of automated newsletter, and
an automated newsletter coming to you.
And that could be quite useful for recruitment businesses as well, because I'm sure there's parts of the CRM that aren't regularly getting contacted, and these are people that potentially.
Okay. So let's just play this. So when I was at Hayes as the sales director for the public sector, I know that when I was at Hayes IT, that only about 20 to 25% of our database was being contacted in a 3-month period. So we'd have 70 to 80% of our database that was inactive. Now, what you're saying is, and that if we're going back pre-GDPR, by the way, and what we would have is you'd have to refresh that database. Mm-hmm. I remember when I worked for Computer People that they estimated they had 25% of the IT recruitment industry in the UK on their database.
Yeah.
Now that data nowadays would have had to be scrapped because it would be redundant. But your point is we could create something to cultivate that, to curate that, to build a relationship with those people. Hold that thought. We may come back and talk to 1 or 2 clients out there about how we might use that. And you reckon you could build me one of them?
Yeah.
Not a huge amount of money.
Well, it depends on Look, at the end of the day, I think, a lot of these systems are still very, very complex.
Wow.
Good. I still think they're very, very, complex to go ahead and build out. And but what AI has allowed us to do is it's actually given us what we call no-code platforms, and it commoditizes that time that big development companies would need in order to to get some sort of outcome. I think coding and actually that side of the technical side of things is becoming commoditized.
So we could start talking about tech stack. We could start talking about what you do and how you do it. But what I've become aware over the last trying to think 6-9 months is the rate and speed of change of the AI world is quite fast. So you've talked about ChatGPT 3.0. You then talked about stuff you were doing, 2020, beginning of 24. So you started this in 23.
Beginning of 24, I think was, that was like custom GPTs and stuff like that.
Yeah. So to anyone who's not listening, what is a custom, or hasn't heard that expression before, what is a custom GPT?
Yeah. Well, a custom GPT is, essentially, a tool or a little bit of software that you can actually go ahead and build out within ChatGPT. That's predefined off core instructions.
So it's a series of instructions that are so let's talk about one that we've discussed before. So it's a something that creates adverts for you. So you get information from a client, you take the note taker information, you take the CV, and it goes away and it produces an advert for you. And that would be something, a set of instructions that you need to do regularly. You can either have it for one client, or you can create 7 for 7 clients, or you can create one generic one for every client. So that's a ChatGPT. You'd use one of those for creating an advert to post.
Yeah, stuff like that. I think that was the very
Front sheets was another one.
It's a very the very basic part of what could be perceived as more of an AI agent.
So we then moved, and you and I have had this conversation before, where you'd talk to a client, you'd take in the brief, you'd update your CRM with the conversation from the transcript, you'd then go away and produce an advert, you'd then post that advert, you'd then go out and mail to candidates on your database that fitted that profile. That's a job flow, a workflow. Yeah?
Yeah.
So I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it for the audience. So you then created scripts that would effectively automate that process. So you push a button. Obviously, this is a key point to emphasise, because there'll be people out there going, well, my consultants wouldn't do that, but you would have quality checks through the process, so that you could check that the advert was right and check this and check that. So, and you built those workflows. Now, you didn't just use ChatGPT for that, did you?
No, I think...
I'm talking 12 months ago. I'm not talking now, because I know what you do now.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, ChatGPT was the starting point for me on my journey, and I think moving forward, obviously they started to release more and more things. They started to release custom GPTs. I explored GPTs. I don't use custom GPTs anymore because the stuff that I use is a lot more advanced. I actually use projects a little bit more, which we talked about earlier. But yeah, I think, it's about how can we break out. Well, the expertise that I bring to the table is how can we actually break out of the ChatGPT bubble and look at augmenting or automating end-to-end processes. So, and how can we do that with hyper personalized data and get the outcomes that you actually want? Because how many times in ChatGPT do you put, create me a job advertisement or create me a candidate summary of this certain person? You're like, that's not me. I wouldn't write like that. It's not, it's not how I'd want that content to be, produced. It's not the format I want that content in.
But you can modify your AI agents, let's call them that. Yeah. So modify the AI agent to reflect your tone of voice, to do your style, can't you?
Yeah. So again, I don't want to go into too much of the technical side of things, but prompt engineering. We know what prompt engineering is now. It's I know. So it's that's essentially that what you're prompting the AI to actually do, what you want to achieve, and how you actually set that out in order to get the best possible outcome.
So in your little scripts, you write a series of prompts that ChatGPT is going to ask you to give it that repeated information. Yeah.
Yeah. So put it this way. So say if you got your, you've got your outcome of your, let's just do job advertisement because it's a simple one that people are going to understand. So you got your ideal job advertisement that's keyword optimized. It's in your company structure. It's how you want to write content and things like that. Now, what I would say is that in order to get that outcome, you might need 8 or 9 different prompts for the data to pass through and for it to build on. Yeah. Now with AI agent builders, we can actually go ahead and automate that process. So, in ChatGPT, you might need to, prompt something, it'll create an outcome. You'll go, oh, don't quite like that. We'll prompt it again until you get that outcome. Now we're talking about a fully automated prompt chain where the data passes through. And then we can start pulling in different...
So this is really techie stuff. Yeah. This is where we might have lost half our audience now, because I do apologise. But no, I think it's important to explain, because what we're talking there is automating a workflow, which is, let's bring it back up to a higher level, which CEOs and MDs might understand. Now, the point I wanted to make is that how you automated a workflow 12 months ago is very different. You'd have probably used a tool like Zapier or something like that,
I think
which MDs may have heard of. Now, you're using something much more. So, and that is because the world is evolving, the tools are evolving, and we're now up to ChatGPT 4.5, which has got phenomenally different functionality and information. And you were explaining to me offline before we started that all of these tools often, and you're going to talk about 2 or 3 that you use in a minute, use ChatGPT behind all of that, don't they?
Yeah, I think in general, a lot of these tools, plug in different large language models. Yeah. What we like to call an AI wrapper. Yeah. And a lot of these. Not Jay-Z. A lot of these, newly built, SaaS products that selling AI or AI as a service products, we'll use some sort of large language model in the back, and it just wraps around how we can actually go ahead and filter down this big bubble of ChatGPT or any large language model out there, like a Claude or a DeepSeek, if you've heard of them large language models, Gemini, and how can we actually narrow that down to automate a workflow and get that outcome that you want, if that makes sense.
So over the last 3 or 4 episodes that you've been on with me, we've talked about, I can't call them chatbots anymore, it's conversational...
conversation engines.
Conversation engines.
Yeah.
We've now got AI wrappers. I think the time before we were talking about a web hook.
Yeah.
So you're totally changing the English language, or but I mean, you now use clay in a different way to, we're not making pots out of it anymore. We use clay to build
BD lists.
BD lists and things like that.
Instant ICP.
So let's just bring this back up. We've got all this tech. We've talked about how it can be used. Are you saying therefore we're going to get rid of recruiters?
No, I think that's the message that we've portrayed along these 4 episodes. AI should be used and will be used in essentially giving recruiters back more time at the value that they actually bring to the table, which is speaking to people, understanding clients' needs, and then core fundamental skill sets that recruiters need.
So because this series is about reimagining recruitment, and the purpose of this episode is to give people, or to give MDs, CEOs, business owners the ability to understand that the art of the possible is changing daily.
Yeah.
We've touched on in previous sessions that, because I've just illustrated, hopefully to the people that can stay with us, that in just 2.5 years you've gone through 3 generations of AI involvement in 2.5 years. And I think we've talked about in previous episodes, the business owners out there, it's almost a full-time job. It's half a job. You spend 20 hours a week in a 40-hour week just doing R&D.
Yeah.
And that's why you call yourself a chief AI officer, don't you?
Yeah.
Because you work with boards, a fractional.
Yeah.
So you work with boards, advising them on what's possible, helping them. And that's why we're saying to people they need to reimagine their business, because this doesn't just create the ability to automate what they do currently. And you alluded to this in the previous podcast where we talked about the human capital side of this. We talked about things that humans do that AI can't do. This gives people the opportunity to reimagine their workflow, the service they offer. Could they offer candidates a better service? You've just talked earlier about a newsletter. So could active recruiters or active candidates have a personalised newsletter? Well, of course they can. All of this is possible. So you see the whole, we're coming towards the end of today's session, but this is all possible then, is it?
Yeah, 100%.
Okay, so we're going to have to draw this to an end today, Toby, but before we do, I think there's one thing that you feel is really important we just need to sort of say to the audience out there.
100%. I think, when business leaders, come to OptiB and myself with, interested in speaking about the potential services, one question that we get asked straight away is, where can I implement AI into my business? And really, I think that's the wrong way of looking at it. I think you should be, looking at what problems can I actually go ahead and solve, or what USPs can I build into my business? And you ask yourself them questions, and then we can sit down, work together, and we can actually strategize that process. I think business leaders really need to understand the angle that they're coming on from the AI side of it.
That's very interesting, because we're going to do a series on reimagining your business, and we're doing a training program on this, or a workshop series. And as an NLP master practitioner, what I would normally, with a live session, we'd actually do a timeline therapy, take people to 3-5 years into the future, get them to look back at where their business was and where it is now. And I would be getting them to do the same thing. So the whole series is called Reimagine Recruitment. You've just said that's what they need to do. They need to not be confined by the current world they're in, but think about what the art of the possible, where they can be.
Yeah, exactly. Art of the possible. But come at it from an angle where AI isn't a silver bullet. It's not going to solve all your problems yet. I think that's really key to understand. as well. It still needs to be strategically drilled into companies' SOPs. And yeah, you know, we've talked about not automating certain tasks, because certain tasks shouldn't be automated, right? As well.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, Toby, thank you very much for joining me today.
Thank you very much for having me.
I think we're going to impose upon you one more time, but that'll be a live session where you're going to do demo of tech and how people can do it and how things work. We'll probably do that through LinkedIn Live, as we've discussed. But for today, thank you very much indeed, and thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much. It's been great to be here.